You're watching PM Agenda. Let's bring in our panel this hour. We're joined by two Sydney-based MPs, one from each side. Labor's Julie Owens is the member for Parramatta, and David Coleman is the Liberal member for Banks, which is in southwest Sydney. Let me start, before we get to the issues of transport, both road and air travel, which have been in focus this week. Let's start with Barry O'Farrell, the big political news of the day. David Coleman, do you think he should have gone over this forgotten bottle of Grange?
Oh, look, I think that's obviously a matter for Barry, and he decided that it was a sufficiently important matter that he had, inadvertently said the wrong thing to ICAC to stand down, and as the Prime Minister.
And what did you think? Was it the right thing to do?
Oh, look,
to resign?
I think it's it's a matter for him. I think that he, I think that we need to be conscious of what's happened here. He's forgotten about a bottle of wine, and whilst it's a serious matter, obviously, to say the wrong thing to ICAC, this is a simple mistake on his part. He obviously felt that it was untenable.
If it was a simple mistake, surely it's not worth a Premier resigning.
Well, look, I think that he's made that decision, and it reflects highly on his character and his integrity, that he felt that something of this nature justified him stepping aside. Obviously, as the Premier, we need to maintain the very highest standards, and he felt that it was appropriate to step aside, and I think that reflects very well on him.
Yeah, Julie Owens, how about you? You've obviously seen Barry O'Farrell in action over many years. Did this surprise you? And do you think it was the right decision?
Look, I can't be the judge of whether it was right or not either. I mean, I'm not Barry. He knows the story. He knows what his systems are when gifts arrive. So that's really a matter for him. But I would say, that it's a sad thing for New South Wales to lose a Premier at any time, particularly so unexpectedly.
You've gone for a few in New South Wales over recent years.
Well, we have, and it'd be nice if we could, all put the partisanship aside for the minute and recognise that, as a Queenslander, we had the Fitzgerald inquiry into the Liberal Nationals. We've had some bad times with Labor, and we seem to be having some rough ones with Liberal now. When there is corruption, we've got bipartisan support for ICAC, and ICAC investigates it, and let's wait and see what happens here.
Yes, there is bipartisan support for ICAC, but it just seems, there is criticism of it today over this, that it is a bit of a star chamber. The target of all of this wasn't Barry O'Farrell, and yet he's the one who's lost his job now. They declared at the outset that he was not being investigated for corruption, and nor is he being actually accused of corruption. It's simply saying the wrong thing, misleading ICAC. Now, that is a serious issue, but do you think the way ICAC works is appropriate? Julie Owens, first to you.
Look, I think we need the transparency. I think we do, and I think over the decades since Nick Greiner first created it, it has been an incredibly important part of keeping an eye out for corruption. But the decision to resign wasn't ICAC's, it was actually Mr O'Farrell's, and I think that he's the one that actually made that decision, and he made it knowing his own story and his own standards. That really is a matter for him. It's not an ICAC decision.
And David,
no, I think if I could just pick up on that. I mean, we need to be very clear here. There's no moral equivalence between forgetting about a bottle of wine from 3 years ago and allegations of misconduct involving, the misappropriation allegedly of tens of millions of dollars. What Mr O'Farrell has done is not corrupt. It is simply forgetful. He's forgotten about a bottle of wine, and so we need to be very careful here, I think, that we accurately characterise this as a forgotten bottle of wine.
To be fair, though, yes, it is feasible that he might have forgotten about it, but at the time he certainly knew about it, because he wrote this letter that we've seen today. So he knew about it at the time. A $3,000 bottle of wine should have been declared on the pecuniary interest register, and he didn't.
Yeah, and I think he's acknowledged, obviously, that was a mistake, and as it was a mistake to have told the ICAC yesterday that he didn't recall it happening. So clearly, in the matter of this particular bottle of wine, Mr O'Farrell has made mistakes, which he acknowledges. Those mistakes do not add up to corruption. They add up to making mistakes about a particular bottle of wine. And that is a very, very different matter to the extraordinarily serious allegations about prominent Labor figures, which we've seen before the ICAC in recent months.
Let me just, before we move on from all of this, Mike Baird, Gladys Berejiklian are the names being touted as possible new premiers. David Coleman as a federal Liberal MP in New South Wales. Who do you think should emerge?
Oh, look, I know Mike and Gladys, I know them both well. They would both be fantastic. There are other people in the state parliament who might put their hand up as well, and I wouldn't want to preempt the outcome from my parliamentary colleagues. But, you know, there's a strong record there to build on in New South Wales of the last 3 years, and looking forward to the new leader taking on that role.
Well, we shall see. We're getting other names. I was mentioning earlier in the mix, Anthony Roberts putting up his hand for Deputy Leader as well. So clearly the dust is away from settling on this particular issue. We are going to move on. I want to talk about the Badgerys Creek Airport, the impact it will have on both of your electorates, the issues around a curfew as well, and the new road funding the Prime Minister's announced too. We're going to take a quick break though, back with more on PM Agenda. If you're watching in New Zealand though, local news will be next for you. We'll continue this discussion here in Australia.
Gabby, despite countless hours of practice, you didn't make it through. What's next?
Might be time to try something new.
Big time.
We all want our Queensland economy to grow stronger. And to prepare for growth, we're rolling out big plans for education, health and infrastructure right across the state. But to turn these plans into reality, we first have to deal with the accumulated debt of the past 10 years. An $80 billion debt with an interest bill of $4 billion every year. $4 billion could build 25 new schools, rebuild a regional hospital, and build hundreds of kilometres of highway. To fix Queensland's debt and interest problems, strong choices have to be made. We can increase taxes, reduce services, or we can sell or lease some assets. The choices we all make today have a critical impact on the future funding of vital projects right across the state. To help you join the conversation, the Queensland Government has launched this interactive website, so you can find out more and have your say. Just visit strongchoices.qld.gov.au. Authorised by the Queensland Government, Brisbane.
What was the thing that drove Fred to dream things never dreamt? You can't create it. You can't fake it. You simply have to support those who have it. Then stand back and watch as they change the world. Westpac Bicentennial Foundation, making sure those with the drive to shape Australia get to.
What uses tomorrow's technology can transport your family with amazing efficiency, yet has all the power and agility you need? Introducing the world's first plug-in hybrid SUV with an incredible combined fuel efficiency of 1.9 litres per 100 kilometres and an unbelievable driving range. It's time to change your view.
How much are drivers saving with Coles car insurance price beat guarantee?
I saved $463. I couldn't be happier.
Jump online or call today to find out.
Coles Little Red Coles.
You're watching PM Agenda. More with our panel in just a moment. First, let's check the news headlines. Here's Helen Daly.
Thanks very much, David. Well, as we've been covering all day on Sky, Barry O'Farrell has resigned as Premier of New South Wales after being forced to admit that he did receive a $3,000 bottle of wine from a lobbyist just after the 2011 election victory. Only yesterday, Mr O'Farrell said he had no recollection of ever receiving the 1959 bottle of Grange. But a corruption inquiry today presented him with a handwritten note in which he thanked lobbyist Nick DiGirolamo. No corruption allegations have been levelled against Barry O'Farrell. The outgoing Premier expects to formally resign next week when his replacement will be announced, with two key frontrunners vying for the top job. The Prime Minister has thrown his support behind Barry O'Farrell, saying the Premier texted him before making the announcement. Tony Abbott said he had enormous respect and admiration for Barry O'Farrell and that he'd taken the utterly honourable decision. State Opposition Leader John Robertson has taken aim, saying the Liberal Party's problems go much deeper than an undeclared bottle of wine. State Treasurer Mike Baird and Transport Minister Gladys Berejiklian are favourites to take the top job. Prince William has paid tribute to Australia's leading role in the ongoing search for the plane wreckage from Malaysia Airlines flight MH370. Speaking at a reception inside the Opera House in Sydney, Prince William also recognised our humanitarian efforts in the wake of recent natural disasters such as Cyclone Ita and the Solomon Islands earthquake. The Duke and Duchess of Cambridge and baby Prince George arrived in Australia 2 hours before to begin their 10-day tour of the country. They mingled with the public before being taken by police boat to Admiralty House across the harbour, where they'll be hosted by Sir Peter and Lady Cosgrove. The underwater vehicle being used in the search for flight MH370 was forced to resurface this morning due to a technical issue. Australian authorities leading the search effort say the Bluefin 21 was fixed on deck before being sent back down to the ocean floor. The vessel's data was also downloaded during the repair on deck. So far, the analysis has indicated no significant detections. Melbourne police are hunting for a man after the stabbing death of a woman in the city's west. The woman, aged in her 30s, died after she was stabbed multiple times about noon today. A witness says the woman was fighting with a man as they crossed Hampshire Road in Sunshine before he stabbed her and then slashed her throat. At this stage, no arrests have been made. At least 3 people have been killed and scores more are still unaccounted for after a ferry ran aground and sank off the southern coast of South Korea. As the rescue effort continues, there are reports some people could still be trapped inside. Most of the passengers, numbering 450 on board, were students on a school trip. They were on their way from the port of Inch to a resort island when the ferry ran into trouble. Commercial ships are believed to have also rescued a significant number of people in the disaster. And in sport, the NRL is clamping down on lifting tackles in the wake of Alex McKinnon's career-ending injuries. From this weekend onwards, the Match Review Committee has been instructed to charge any player who puts another in a position where they could land on their head or their neck. The NRL admits they've been disappointed that some players have escaped charges this year for tackles they believe were dangerous. David, that's it from the newsroom for the moment. Back to you.
Helen, thank you. We're talking this afternoon to Labor MP Julie Owens and the Liberals David Coleman, pointing out, of course, Julie Owens, your seat of Parramatta in Western Sydney, and David Coleman, your seat of Banks is in southwest Sydney. I want to turn to the issues around Badgerys Creek. Now, the Prime Minister's made the announcement yesterday that there will be an airport there. Construction to begin in a couple of years, fully operational, not for another 10 years. David Coleman, how much will this impact on your electorate, the voters in your electorate, and what do you think of this?
Oh, I think this is fantastic news, David. I mean, you know, I turned 40 a few weeks ago, and my entire life, people have been talking about an airport for Western Sydney. It's a difficult decision, it's a tough decision, but it's a decision that the Prime Minister's made because it's what's right for Western Sydney. So it means infrastructure, it means upgrades to the Northern Road, to the Elizabeth Drive new motorway out there and Bringelly Road, 4,000 jobs in construction and more, many more in the future. It also means for my electorate, which as you know, David, is a little closer to Kingsford Smith, it means that whilst Kingsford Smith will still be operational, we are no longer going to ask Kingsford Smith to take the entire burden of Sydney's airport traffic in the future. So I think it's a terrific initiative and
where do you stand on the curfew? Where are you on the idea of a curfew? Should there be a similar curfew at Badgerys Creek as Kingsford Smith?
Yeah, I think it's too early for the government to commit on that issue one way or the other. We obviously need to work through the detailed plans around the airport. I think it is worth noting that the number of homes directly around the flight path of Badgerys Creek is only around 4,000 as opposed to 100,000 plus near Kingsford Smith. So I think that's something that still needs to be worked through.
Yeah, Julie Owens, how about you on the whole concept of Badgerys Creek Airport? What do you think?
Look, I think it's a potentially a very good announcement today. I mean, this airport's been on the agenda really since the Hawke Keating government bought the land way back, 30 years ago now. But there's always been one side of government in state or federal that was against it. And so it's sort of meandered around for a while. Now, in a very rare moment, we actually have a federal government and a federal opposition and a state government and a state opposition that are all supporting it, which is important because in a 10-year build, it's likely that one or the other is going to change somewhere along the way. So we actually need bipartisan support to make these big projects work. There are going to be differences of opinion, and I hope we can take a really bipartisan approach to working through them for the good of the project in the long run. From my perspective, the road build is really important. The roads they're building now, or they're talking about now, are the roads they need to actually get the trucks in to build it, and that's important. But when you have
we should point
airports,
out what these roads are that have been announced today. I think we've got some details we can bring up on screen as well. You both would know them better than I, though. Julie Owens, are the road announcements the right way to spend this money?
Well, they're all important. They're all important, quite bad sections of road that need serious work, and they are bits of road that we will need in order to get the trucks in for the build itself, which is very important. But once the airport's functioning, if you've got two airports, my side of politics believes we need rail. Particularly between the two airports, so we would be arguing for stronger rail. We'd also be arguing for a really clear and transparent planning process so that people who believe they can benefit from the airport can make those decisions early, and people who think that they might be losers because of the airport have a substantial period of time to work their way through what they might do. So the longer and more transparency we have in the planning process, the better it is for everyone, and the better this project will work.
Yeah, the rail point is an interesting one, and this is a little contentious. So, David Coleman, what do you think about that? Do we need a rail line from any new airport at Badgerys Creek going, to the city or indeed, as Julie Owens suggested, the other airport? Yeah,
we certainly need to preserve the capacity to build that railway, which is part of the plan with the new airport. So the southwestern corridor for the railway will be extended. You obviously very large project to build a railway, and you want to make sure that you only do that when the demand is there. That it's prudent to leave the capacity to do so, which we're doing. If I could just pick up on the roads, I mean, the road upgrades are critical. So that new motorway along what is now Elizabeth Drive, linking up to the M7 between the Northern Road and the M7 is going to be critical for truck movements and car movements. And then, of course, the Northern Road itself, going from 2 lanes to 4, all the way up to the M4 and down to Narellan, that's going to be very helpful for people using the airport, and it's going to be helpful for people in Western Sydney generally, because every time we save 10 minutes in a trip, that's 10 minutes that we can either be productive in a business sense or spend more time on other things such as family. So I think the road upgrades are particularly important.
And what's particularly good about...
Heaven forbid politicians should see their families. Look, we've only got a couple of minutes left, but let me go further west, a lot further west, to Western Australia, where Louise Pratt, the Labor senator, has conceded defeat. She's not going to win that final Senate spot that Labor have been holding out hope for. But she's finally opened up about Joe Bullock, who was the #1 Senate candidate there, controversial candidate. We know one of the unions who helped him into that position has now said he shouldn't be sitting as a Labor senator. Well, here's what Louise Pratt has said today.
It is a blow to progressive voters that I would be replaced in the Senate by someone who I have known for many years to be deeply homophobic, to be anti-choice, and has recently emerged disloyal to the very party he has been elected to represent.
Well, I suppose the point is, why didn't she say this before the election? Obviously, it would have damaged the Labor brand, but I guess this is why people get so cynical about politicians. But Julie Owens, what do you make of that? Is she right? Is Joe Bullock a deeply homophobic candidate, the wrong choice to be #1 on the Senate ticket?
Look, I haven't met him. I feel for Louise, by the way. She is a great senator.
You sit in the caucus with him?
Yeah. Joe? No, I don't. No, I haven't. No, I haven't. He's actually over in WA. I've never met him. But clearly at some point a group of people thought...
He's the Labor senator from WA. Wouldn't you have met him in the caucus?
Actually, I haven't. There you go. There you go. I haven't met him. I haven't.
All right.
See, I haven't been paying that much attention to WA, I have to say. I've been paying attention to Parramatta. But look, I just want to say about the pre-selection process that both sides of politics occasionally throw up someone that people question. But our pre-selection processes also throw up some really good members of parliament in very safe seats. And you look at the ones that came in with Labor in the last election, Lisa Chesters and Tim Watts, they're incredibly talented, hard-working people. So the pre-selection process quite often works very well, but anything can be improved, and I think there's a growing view in the party that the more democratic our processes are, the better result we get. And I suspect that if we were having a bipartisan moment, looking at some of the candidates that the Liberal pre-selection throws up from time to time, I think we would both agree that the more democratic it is, the better the result we get.
I think that's a debate that has a way to go yet. Look, we are out of time. David Coleman, Julie Owens, great to talk to both of you, particularly with that Sydney perspective on things today. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, David.